out, crosses out, checker flag. That's a fine. Awesome drive, man. Awesome drive.
It's nice to close out a race like that. That was awesome.
This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
We'd like to welcome Jonathan Hassler, crew chief for Ryan Blaney's number 12 Ford Mustang for Team Penske. The Greencastle, Indiana native is also a 2007 graduate of Purdue University. Jonathan, welcome to the Team Blaney Podcast.
Thanks, Adam and Steve, for having me. Glad to be here.
Last year was your first year as a full-time crew chief, first year with Ryan Blaney. So we want to talk about your journey into motorsports and kind of what got you into things in the first place. But, you know, from what I understand, you're a pretty active athlete in high school, but also along the way, you were an aspiring race car driver, kind of starting with go-karts. So can you talk about how you got into racing in the first place?
Yeah, I think it all kind of started really just with my family, very, mechanically inclined. My dad, my grandpa, my uncle, they all ran a trucking company. So I was always around kind of tools and machinery and things like that. And my dad kind of got to be friends, I guess you'll say, with the guy that owned the local go-kart track, and had an opportunity one weekend where that guy's son wasn't going to be able to race. The guy said, "Hey, bring your boy out on Tuesday night, let him take a couple laps. If he has fun, he likes it, he can race on Saturday night." So we went, we did that, we raced Saturday, and then the following Saturday we had bought all of our own stuff and we were there racing on our own. So started at, I think I was eight years old when I started racing go-karts. Go-karts kind of turned into a bit of a family affair for me and my whole family. There's a time when, three of my brothers, my mom, my dad, and myself were all racing out of the back of a pickup truck set at the local track. So it was a pretty exciting family affair, and went through that for I would say 3 or 4 years where we were all kind of doing it, and everybody kind of had the feel of it except for me. And that was kind of when I turned 13 or so, right at that age, I really honed in that I wanted to do something with racing as a career if I could. And my family was fortunate to be able to try to take things to kind of a higher level, and we got to traveling with the go-karts. We went from racing at a single track 10 minutes away to driving 4 or 5 hours some weekends to go race, and racing once a week to racing 2 or 3 times a week at times. So did that for a few years, and got the opportunity about the same time, I think 13, 14, to drive a mini sprint, modified midget, whatever you want to call it. Lots of terms for it, but for a guy in our area. So I had 3 or 4 years where I was doing both go-karts and the mini sprint. And kind of during that time, Ryan Newman was really kind of getting his name out there for, having his engineering background and all of that was, doing for him and racing. And he was a Purdue graduate and kind of led me kind of down the path of wanting to go to Purdue and do mechanical engineering. So I got enrolled at Purdue, and kind of when I moved up to Purdue, at that point, kind of the driving opportunities kind of fell apart. I tried really hard for a few years to, start a super late model program. I was able to kind of start a program at Purdue that got, myself and some other guys at school that I got to be around, just the opportunity to work on late models and big race cars. One thing that I saw when I was at Purdue, there's a lot of, there's opportunities to kind of work on a Formula car and Baja car and things like that, where you do a lot of design work, but there weren't a lot of opportunities to go out and actually work on actual cars that were racing and design aside, just work on the setup and maintaining the car. So we got a group of guys to do that. That was so 2006, 2007 timeframe. And I actually, at that point in time, I got to work for Hendricks County Motorsports out of Indianapolis. And their driver at the time was Chris Gabehart, name you'll recognize. He's
Yep.
crew chief for Denny Hamlin. Chris and I became good friends at that point in time. And like I said, worked there for a few years. Fast forward maybe to my senior year in college, I went down to Charlotte and started kind of knocking on doors with, again, that same group of guys from Purdue that were working on the late models, and got an internship with MB2 Motorsports at the time. Spent a summer working for MB2. That was at the same time, kind of MB2 went to Ginn, and then kind of into the DEI. So I was there through all that. I was there the day they were kind of bought out by DEI, and then graduated college and had a couple different opportunities from there. Could have continued with DEI or had the opportunity to go to Penske as a race engineer in the Busch Series, and took that opportunity and was there. I've been there ever since. So I think this is it's either my 15th or 16th year with Team Penske.
Yeah, now that's pretty impressive. We talk to a lot of people about when we do these interviews, like, how do you get into racing? How do you get into NASCAR? And it kind of sounds like you took it into your own hands to start this group at Purdue, to get a bunch of like-minded people together and kind of go on this journey together. Are there other kind of graduates of that group that are working in NASCAR today?
Yeah, there are. There are a few guys that have kind of come and gone, but they got themselves into the sport and were in the sport for anywhere from 5 to 10 years. And then another girl that was with us, Angela McCollum, her maiden name anyway. But Angela, she's still in the sport. She was with on the NASCAR side for I don't know, 5 to 8 years maybe, and then she moved back to Indianapolis to work with Chip Ganassi, and she was actually one of the engineers on the 500 winning car a couple of years ago. So pretty cool that that group of guys and girls that were together at the same time have gone to so many places.
Now, you said you've been with Penske pretty much ever since in your whole career, and you've moved up the ranks. Like you said, you started in the Busch Series, Xfinity Series level. Eventually you worked your way up, and you worked as a race engineer for Brad Keselowski, and you guys had some pretty big success over that run, winning some of the biggest races in the series.
Yeah, Brad, I would say that Brad's probably for sure from a win and results standpoint, probably the biggest highlight of my career, certainly as a race engineer. We were able to win the Southern 500, the Brickyard 400, all within a couple weeks. I think we made Final Four probably, I don't know, maybe 2 years. 2 years of the 4 or 5 that I was with those guys. So yeah, definitely had a lot of fun with Brad. He was, he honestly turned Penske into kind of took him to the next step from where they'd been when he joined in 2010. So it was fun to kind of go on that journey with him.
What kind of things does a race engineer do as compared to crew chiefing? What kind of skill set is that?
Yeah, it certainly varies, and it's definitely evolved through the time that I've been in the sport. But the race engineer kind of classically is he handles a lot of the information in terms of how the car is built, sending the specifications to the mechanics and to the shop to, the level of detail that every piece and part of the car is built to. The crew chief is there kind of with him, developing that spec, kind of talking that over, but he's the one that kind of maintains it and kind of fills out that paperwork. Gives a crew chief kind of different ideas on different directions on setup, handles fuel mileage and those things during the race, analyzes the data at tests and throughout a weekend. So really the right-hand man to the crew chief and giving him all the information that he needs to make the right decisions.
Now, we talked a little bit about the next gen car when we talked about it being the second year going there with the Clash. From what I understand, you were involved a little bit in the development when it comes to Team Penske before you got that chance to go crew chief. Can you talk a little bit about your involvement there? And did doing any of that early on before it ever hit the track give you any kind of advantage going into being a full-time crew chief with the new car for its first year?
Yeah, 2020 for me, 2020 and 2021 I was certainly starting to get a little bit tired, for lack of a better word, in the race engineer role. But we saw the new car coming, and I definitely worked with had to talk to Travis Geisler at our company and other parts of our management about trying to put myself in a position to spend a lot of time with that car and that new project. So yeah, I was actually able to go test with Ryan in I think it was May of 2021, I think. It was the second test that Penske did with the next gen car. So I was able to be around it, from the very beginning and try to, there's a lot of different parts and pieces, and with the independent rear suspension, try to get my eyes on it really early. And it definitely helped me to, when we started testing with our own cars in 2021, kind of be at the forefront for our team of kind of thoughts and ideas and things we needed to do.
I was going to say, between last year and now, like last year, you knew what the box was as far as like the adjustments you could make. But as the notebook is growing on it, are you finding more and more ways to be able to adjust the car than you did like early last year?
Yeah, and I think the box continues really to grow. There's some things that the box is getting smaller, you're kind of refining, but there's certainly things that you thought you knew that you kind of go back and reevaluate and maybe start to go a different direction. So early on, I think we based a lot of the things that we did just on parallels that we could draw with the old car and philosophies that worked with the old car. But yeah, I think throughout the year, people have started to diverge from those philosophies a little bit, and some of them worked and some of them haven't. So, with the limited number of things that we can change, you certainly got to be creative and open-minded to doing things different.
So in the middle of working on this next gen program ahead of its launch, you get the call to serve as an interim crew chief for one race for Joey Logano when Paul Wolf was suspended, I think, for like a lug nut violation or something like that. So that was kind of your first taste as a crew chief. And then not soon after that, you get called up to take over the 21 car with the Wood brothers. Was it easy to just kind of change gears that quickly and take on a whole team, or was it a little bit of a challenge at first?
Actually, so not to correct you, but I actually got one more in before that. I got I think it was the spring race at Martinsville. Greg was out on the 21 COVID protocol.
Oh, okay, that's right. That's right.
The spring race of Martinsville 2021. Sorry, 2020. Yeah, I'm getting my years all mixed up, but no, it was 2021. Anyway, so I got to do that, and that was cool because Greg, I have a lot of respect for Greg. Greg and I have always had a good kind of ability to communicate, and when I went to do that first race, he definitely took me under his wing and prepped me on all the different scenarios that might come up. And I felt like I was able to kind of, even in that 1 week, kind of contribute to that group just with some different ideas that I had as well. And that very first race, we actually I think pretty early on in that race with Matt at Martinsville, we had some damage that we had to sort of kind of recover from, and we were able to I think go on and get a top 10 finish with a pretty beat up car. And then fast forward a couple months, Paul has his like I think you said it was a lug nut penalty or something along those lines, and pretty similarly we had radiator damage really early in that race, and we fought water temperature throughout the whole race, and we were tape on the nose, tape off the nose. It was a huge struggle, but we were able to come back and drive from the back of the pack at Dover to get a top 5. So that was really fun. And yeah, definitely after those two events, I'd always wanted to be a crew chief, but then, having the opportunity to do it for a couple of races, you realize that, hey, this isn't, this is more than just something I want to do. This is something I can do, and definitely kind of lit a fire under me to try to find the next, a full-time seat.
So how does then from the end of that season with the 21, how do you get to the 12 car? What was the process like of being able to be picked, for that job?
It's kind of crazy how it worked out, but I had never worked with Ryan specifically. Never been on his car, except for I'll backtrack. There was 1 year, so I was Xfinity Series kind of race engineer 07 to the middle of 2011. Was Cup 2011, 2012, and then actually took a year off the road in 2013 and kind of did, for the most part, R&D work for Penske. But during that time, that was right when Ryan was coming on board, and I got to do at least one, maybe two Xfinity races with him at that point. So kind of just started that relationship, and he was always somebody that I could kind of talk to along the way, and he at least felt to me kind of closer in age and was easier to talk to, and we could always talk about stuff kind of outside of racing. So kind of we had that relationship going, and somewhere along the way I had told him that, if there was never opportunity to work with him, that, I would be happy to do it. I'd like to, talk to him about it. And, all the pieces kind of fell in place with, getting a few different races with the 21, and then kind of filling in with the 21 for the second half of that season. And then things kind of worked out with, Todd retiring right at the right time. I kind of made Ryan's short list, and we were able to kind of, honestly, we went out and had a beer and kind of talked about our different, our philosophies and what we think about racing, and everything lined up to move on together.
Now, you talked about the relationship there, and you mentioned Todd Gordon, who, when he came over to crew chief for Ryan after Ryan was with Jeremy Bullins for so long, Todd was kind of, at least from us, listening to the radio and things, kind of like more of a father figure. You said you were a little bit closer in age. How do you kind of balance that by still being the leader of this team? And sometimes, outside of the car, Ryan's pretty even keel and cool. He doesn't make too much noise. Sometimes he can get a little bit worked up, it seems like on the racetrack. So how has that relationship developed, maybe just over the radio or over the in-car, as you guys have worked through the year?
It's certainly something that we continue to try to kind of find that sweet spot, I guess you will, for lack of better terms. I've made comment to Ryan before that, I thought, when I did that half a season with Matt, I thought I kind of knew what my job was, and the right way to communicate to a driver. But then you get a new driver, and they respond differently to those same things, and they don't need the same level of input. So that's something that I've definitely worked with. I tend to, so far I've been pretty calm and quiet with Ryan, and when he has his little blow ups, I try to let him kind of deal with those. But it's something we talked about a lot, even over the winter, of what's right, when do I need to intervene, how can I do the best to help him kind of move on. So yeah, it's definitely something that we've continued to refine, I guess, and fortunately we do have that good relationship where outside of the car we'll have a pretty open conversation about what happened and what we need to do differently the next time, and all we try to do in general on the 12 car is learn from each and every week and try to be a step better and let the results kind of go from there.
Yeah, and I do the scanner report every week. If if you've heard the show, and I noticed that terminology is really key. And notice, especially even this past weekend, he gave tons of feedback at certain points in time. Is that something you guys, because you guys really understand each other? I don't understand half the time what he's telling you. How do you decipher some of the things he's telling you to make the adjustments that you need to make?
Yeah, you kind of just try to continue to build up that notebook, and I try to work a lot in a number scale. Tell me on a number scale how bad whatever it is that you're fighting, so that with data points for, I'm going to get all engineering on you, but the more data points we get, the better I have the the ability to decipher and understand what he's saying. So try to take all emotions out of it for sure, and just give me a number on what you have and what we need to do to be better.
Now, we talked a little bit about working through, frustrations on the racetrack and some of the things that happened. And again, to be clear, this wasn't just the 12 team. This was up and down pit road all year long, but pit crews struggled getting used to this new choreography for some teams, just the new tires and wheels, the new single lug. What have you guys done at Team Penske kind of over the off season to maybe work on the pit crews for the upcoming year? I don't think we've really made too many personnel changes, but I'm sure they've been practicing really hard for this upcoming season.
Yeah, in general, there's been a lot of evolution, I guess I could say, in that area, probably not only within our company, but within the whole garage. As the cars kind of get closer and closer together, you got to find that next thing that you can really kind of utilize to set yourself apart. And pit road certainly set teams apart throughout the year. So we looking at how the year went for us last year, we had our bumps. We had to make some changes along the way, both personnel wise and just as well with technique. Our rear changer, Zach, he was one of the ones that was penalized along with me after that Bristol race. During his 4 weeks off, he totally changed his technique and went from a right-handed pull to a left-handed pull, and made a lot of time. We had other people in the off season that the same thing. There were a few different techniques on pit road that were probably a little bit faster, and our guys kind of went and tried those new techniques and implemented kind of what they could to be better. So I was really proud of where our team ended the year last year. I think if you look through the chase, we were definitely in the top half, maybe even in the top quarter of the final 12 with our pit road performance. And if you look at kind of where we started the year and the few races that we clearly gave up on pit road, I was really, really proud of the effort. So continue to try to do things differently in that area, and just like anything else, try to be better than we were the previous event. And it takes the whole team. I've asked a lot of our road crew even to participate with things through the week that can help the pit crew and help us be a stronger team. So we continue to try to grow as a race team, and I hope the results will show it this year.
You mentioned the suspension that you were on after that race at Bristol for a tire kind of getting away on pit road. NASCAR has amended that policy for 2023 to where crew chiefs are no longer going to be suspended. I'm going to assume you are in favor of this rule change, because it did take you out of some key races in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, I'm definitely in favor of the rule. At the end of the day, as bad as it maybe seemed, I am fortunate to be at Team Penske, where we have some depth. I thought it was a pretty solid move on part of our company to put kind of Miles Stanley in that position. Miles and I have, as long as he's been at, Team Penske, have been, kind of shoulder to shoulder working alongside of each other. And we were able to get through that. Honestly, that probably strengthened our team a little bit with, just adding a few more thoughts. So yes, I'm in favor, but certainly it wasn't anything that we couldn't get around, obviously.
So you're a couple of years into being a full, you had almost a half year with DiBenedetto and then a full year with Ryan. All that time before that, you worked more on the engineering side. So how did you get your arms around strategy and calling races? Because with the 12 car last year, you guys were one of the most consistent cars all year long. You built up a pretty decent amount of playoff points with 3 stage wins and just stage points throughout races. It seems like you guys kind of really leaned in on trying to gain as much stage points as you possibly could. And really with some of the struggles you had throughout the playoffs, that might have helped keep propelling this team through round by round. Going into this season, are you still, I mean, like I said, it just seems like that from the outside, but are you still kind of going to lean on this aspect of needing to get as many points as possible? Or do you think, going winless last year outside of the All-Star race, do you think you need to take more risks to win races?
Yeah, I think if I had to do a few different points of the season differently, there were certainly a couple of races. I think Coda comes to mind specifically, where I think we ended up scoring the most points at Coda on the day, but we kind of took ourselves out of winning contention by our strategy that we did. I think I definitely would have probably played a little bit more for a win. Obviously, as you guys, we're in it with us. But if you can get that win, it just takes so much off your back. We were essentially playoff racing from early July, maybe even middle of June. We were in a pretty tight points battle, and if you're able to get that win, that certainly kind of takes that off your chest and kind of lets you spread out and try some different things and maybe put yourself in a position to have a little bit more speed in your car, just because you don't have to be so conservative. So definitely, I think if I had to do it over again, I would be a small step more aggressive. But as you said, those points, they without having a win, they were still valuable. So even at the end of the day, you're still kind of walking a tight line of taking risks, but taking smart risks.
I was gonna say, I thought you guys were pretty aggressive all year. I was going to bring up Indianapolis. That call to me was one of the best calls, and there was, people don't know or maybe realize there was some other circumstance that happened there. It had nothing to do with the pit call itself. But that call there pretty much should have put you right out front if there wasn't some other issues there. So I thought you guys were pretty aggressive.
Yeah, that was another one. You kind of Monday morning quarterback yourself each and every week, and I could certainly go either way on that one. Again, like you said, I think we execute that perfectly, and we come out with the lead and potentially a chance to hold off the 8. The 8 was really good, that entire day. Mm-hmm. On the flip side, being on old tires on those last restart there at Indianapolis, we kind of had a target on our back for people to kind of use us up. So I could probably do that one either way again, honestly, but certainly we'll try to be aggressive and try to get ourselves out front when we can this year.
We talk about being aggressive when it comes to strategy, but we kind of got the sense last year, and I said this in our early episodes of the podcast last year, that we almost saw a new Ryan Blaney last year. He seemed more outwardly aggressive, even in some interviews, getting a little bit more fiery, a little bit more aggressive on the racetrack, even coming to the clash which, I mean, everybody was kind of pent up and frustrated with that thing. But, after he got spun, he wants to know who spun him and where it came from. And do you think it's good to see Ryan kind of get a little bit more aggressive because he's always kind of been known, or at least people seem to think he's a little bit more timid when it comes to racing, but we saw some more aggression out of him last year.
Yeah, it's kind of hard for me to understand, kind of not having seen him obviously prior to this year, at that same level, but I've definitely kind of heard that. And I think he had, from early next gen testing, we had so much speed at every test. I think he had a lot of confidence coming into the year and knew that, we were going to be able to be in contention to win a lot of races. And, obviously as the season went on, I think that pressure just kind of went up and up and up, and that probably drove a lot of what you heard. So hopefully this year we can get one early and kind of take the monkey off his back a little bit and maybe go pick off a few more after that.
So you didn't get that points win last year, but you guys did get a victory in the All-Star race, which did not come without drama. It seems like, honestly, if you go back to a lot of Ryan's wins over his career, there's been a lot of drama going down to each of them. But is it still fulfilling to go out there and win kind of one of those bucket list races, even though you guys didn't get a points win?
Yeah, absolutely. As a competitor, you want to win, each and every race, and there's not, to be perfectly honest, there's not one race that you want to win more than the other. Every time you show up and you're at the track and racing other cars, you want to win. So it was nice to get that. We didn't, back into it. We had solid speed throughout the weekend. So I was certainly proud that we were able to get it done at least once.
So we have the clash behind us here, and we are moving to one of those big races, another bucket list race, and that's the Daytona 500 coming up here in a couple of weeks. You have probably one of the best super speedway racers behind the wheel for you, and a guy that last year maybe one move goes differently. He was a Daytona 500 champion. He's also come close a couple of other times in that race. What do you think your prospects are going into this race for 2023?
Yeah, I think kind of the way everything is shaken out, all the manufacturers last year, if you look over the course of the year, each manufacturer kind of had their own niche kind of style of track. I think you saw the Toyotas were really fast at the speedways and maybe some of the mile and a halves. I think that, the Fords and Chevrolets were a little bit better at the shorter tracks and maybe the other group of mile and a halves. Over the off season, there's been minor changes, aero changes to all the different manufacturers. And I think what you'll see is it's probably a lot more even. And I think those kind of niche tracks probably go away. So with that, I'm kind of looking at this year with all those speedway races are certainly probably our best chance to go out and get wins. Not that we can't compete at other tracks, but I think those were places that we could win last year. And I think we're even going to be a step more competitive this year.
Now with all these, so I think every car has a different kind of nose going into this season. And Steve will tell you that he doesn't like practice and thinks practice should be canceled at everything, but you guys don't have practice going into qualifying at Daytona. So you don't really know what those aerodynamic changes are going to be like on track yet. Does that make you a little bit anxious, or are you okay without having practice going into this Daytona 500?
Yeah, no, I kind of, I'm okay not having it. I like the challenge of, trying to use your notes and resources other than practice to kind of put your best foot forward. So no, I kind of accept that challenge and look forward to it.
Now we talked about super speedways being a great opportunity for you guys to win. Do you have any other races circled on this year that you said you'd like to win any race, but is there anything on this year that you're really looking forward to that you think you guys are going to bring a good piece to?
No, I think, like I said, I think the speedways are definitely, our best chance. I feel like we probably gave up really, 2 Phoenix races and a gateway race. I think we were probably the best car at honestly each of those races. So I think those are certainly places that we can compete for wins as well. But look, at the end of the day, there's nowhere that I'm not excited about going to with Ryan Blaney, because I think we can show up and contend for wins each week.
Well, Jonathan, for myself and Steve, I think we really want to thank you for giving us the time to come on and talk with us, come on and talk with fans of Ryan. And we really just wanted to let people know a little bit more about you and your story.
Thank you guys very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.